Yes, Derrick. Can you talk a little bit about mindset? So how can an entrepreneur that's in the middle protect their mindset so that they can make it through to the reward?
You know, you may have a support system that believes in you and all that's great. Okay. But you ultimately, you've got to be the biggest believer in what you're doing, because you can get into your own head. Make sure that you have weekly goals, that you're accomplishing those goals, that you are celebrating those wins in even the smallest way. And that can help just get your mindset happy about what you're accomplishing, because it is a mind game. It's very, very, very mental, and you'll have a lot of forces, internal and external, that will try to pull you away from it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CEO Lounge. This is the latest episode. We are live from Relevant Media Solutions, Cary, North Carolina. We've got a live studio audience. What's up, y'all? Yes, bringing the energy, the heat, the fire. But most of all, I've got my co-host, Joselyn Flores. How you doing?
Doing great. Excited.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey, CEO Lounge. This is a special episode as we talk about the middle part, what it takes to succeed as an entrepreneur. And I know you're going to dive into that more. But I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this Real Talk series. I feel like I can let my hair down, all the hair that I have, and talk about, the journey. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun to talk about what it really takes. We want to inspire you. If you're looking to start a business, looking to make a career change, you can do it. But we're going to give you the real. We're not just going to, sugarcoat it and show you how we've, gotten rich quick and whatnot. It's going to take hard work. But you can do it, and it is worth it. And we're going to talk about the middle, the most important part.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm very excited. I think when we first started and everything was kind of coming together, and then we got the Blueprint series, and we're like, oh, that's perfect. This series where we can, at the very end, also give you actionable steps to take and resources. But then while we were talking, some of the conversations we realized were kind of taking a turn from actionable steps and resources, but we were like, it kind of a venting session.
Yes.
And like, oh, that's good. And I'm like, oh, wow, I feel so much better being able to talk to somebody who understands, or to hear this perspective. And then we were like, this is the real talk part of this, about those areas where not a lot of people see, not a lot of people like to talk about, but where it's so important for young entrepreneurs or anybody who is in that place to see that, oh, he made it, but there was a moment where it didn't look like this.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
That's where I want to be, but there was a point in time where it didn't look that way.
Exactly.
And all I'm seeing right now is overnight successes. All I'm seeing is, if I can do it, you can do it too.
Right.
But it's like, no, but like, help me get through this middle part.
That's right.
Help me get through this area that's not so easy.
This is it. This is the, to keep the relationship analogy, this one it's time to clean the bathroom. You know what I mean? It's time to do
fold the laundry.
Laundry. It's time to mow the lawn. It's time to do that kind of stuff, right?
You no longer going on dates where I'm fully dolled up in makeup. Now you get to see me in sweats.
That's right.
No makeup on. Yeah, like that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And I mean, that's your life.
Yeah, that's
your life.
real. That's real.
Yeah. So there's a quote I heard. And I'm going to say it, and I want you to give me your feedback on it.
Okay.
So nobody claps for the nights you don't quit. What's your take on that?
Yeah, because if anybody's being real, you think about quitting a lot. So those are successes for sure. When you're able to, I don't know what percentage you want to put on it, 80%, let's just say, of being successful as an entrepreneur, really in anything, is sticking with it. You kind of look back at, those in high school and those that you say, man, I never would have thought they would have done that. How did they do that? Or the people that you thought were going to be, amazing in something and maybe didn't. A lot of it is just sticking with it.
Yeah.
Is a very important part. So the days that you don't quit, the days that you're able to push through those tough times, that's what separates those that get over that hump and get to that stage to where you can really start to enjoy it. And,
Yeah.
Enjoy what you've done.
Yeah. And so I'm so excited to be able to talk about that because, again, in the beginning, I would hope that everybody has the support system. I understand that not everybody does. But in the beginning, a lot of people are clapping you on. They're cheering you on. They're like, you got this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once you're bringing in, everybody's also clapping for you because they want a piece of it or they want to be a part of this. But what happens when there's nobody clapping for you? Nobody's clapping for you. They're like, you're like, hey, I started new. Yeah, you started that 2 years ago. Like, we know.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we've talked about this more than once. But it's like famously now the story between at least us and like what a lot of this is built on is that one time where you had to go back to corporate America. And we've discussed that, it wasn't necessarily a choice that you made because that was your only option.
Right.
But you have reached a point where you had employees under you. You weren't just thinking about yourself anymore.
Right.
You wanted to make sure to keep them on, not just because you wanted to keep them employed, but also because this benefited the company.
Yes.
So there was a moment where you were a full-time job, full-time business owner, full-time dad, full-time husband, full-time human being who also has the friends and the life and all this stuff. And I remember you telling me a story about one night you were in the office. And it's 1 a.m. It's 1 in the morning. Everybody's gone. You walk out, lights are off. The only person in the room, in the building is the janitor. And you took a video of that night. And then you sent it to a friend. And then you kind of said something along the lines of, like either what it takes or the things that people don't see. Or something.
I remember it well.
Like that. And, the kind of moment like no one claps for. But the kind that builds everything that comes after. And so when you told me that, it definitely impacted me, the thought of just envisioning that, tired probably, most likely, working a full day, then going to the office and working another full day.
That's right.
And then leaving and everybody's gone. You're the only one there. So let's talk about that 1 a.m. video.
Okay.
Tell us about that night and what made you take that video.
It was so spur of the moment. It was a long day. I had a couple of nights, a week where that was planned. In order to make the business thrive, I had to put the time in, and I was working a full-time job, so I couldn't work on it during 8 to 5 or whatever. So it's funny, like 6-7 p.m. was my lunch break. So it was just the craziest thing. Traditional lunch time was my breakfast. So it was just different with the days that I was putting in at that time. But it was a Thursday, long day. I remember coming out the side door. And I could, heard the vacuum cleaner was running, and custodian was there vacuuming, and it just hit me. And I think I had a few challenging, things that I was dealing with at the time for that particular day. And I remember looking at the time like, man, and this was another thing that would happen. I would start hitting my wife up about 11 p.m. Right. And then it would be a question of, okay, was she going to stay up or was she going to go to bed? And we had an understanding because it was, a routine. She was fully on board. She knew, I had my nights where I came home at the regular time, but then I had the nights where I had to, go in and work. And then I had one day on the weekend where I would do this as well. So that's how I would take care of both. But I remember coming out the side door, hearing the, vacuum cleaner, and it just all hit me. And I was like, man, most people aren't doing this, and I remember feeling different at that particular. It was just something. It's something I'd done tons of times, and to go back to 11 o'clock, I would start hitting her up 10:30, 11 o'clock. All right, I think I'm gonna head out of here in about 30 minutes. I think I'm gonna hear about 30 minutes, and then it would extend because more things would happen. I'm like, okay, hold on, I'm working on a few more things. All right, it's gonna be 12. All right, it's gonna be 12:30. So then I'm finally walking out. And I'm like, no, for real this time. Like I've already put my backpack on, so I'm walking out the door.
She's already asleep.
Right. Exactly. The shout out to the wife. And so I just heard it and was like, man, you know what? Let me actually record this. And I recorded it, and I remember saying something to the effect of, those of you that want to be an entrepreneur, this is what it takes. I was like, you see the glory part, you see the philanthropy, and you say, hey, I want to have a business. I want to give money to great causes and do all these great things. It's like, oh, that's great. But this is the work behind the scenes. You may see me picking up my son from school at 3:00, right? But you don't see me leaving here at 1 a.m., right? There's a price that goes with all of that. And so I just remember that vividly. And I sent the video only to like 2 or 3 people. I think I sent it to my parents, of course, my wife, and I sent it to Mike Sims. Mike Sims, VP of TNT Creative Group. And Mike always brings that video up.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to put it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, I didn't do it for that.
Yeah.
It was just more internally for me. And I was like, at some point, and now's probably the time, because we'll probably show it with this. I was like, but I just knew, and that'll be a whole nother show, is timing. Timing is everything with things. And I just knew the timing wasn't right, but it was just something that Lord just told me, capture this. Capture this as part of your journey. And I did. I have some other videos too from back in the day that just chronicle the journey. But I did that from time to time, knowing I get deep down inside, I knew I would get where I want to go. And I knew that story was going to inspire people. And I wanted to have proof of what the journey really was, other than me saying it.
Yeah.
So,
So then would you say you did realize then how much those nights would mean to you now? Or is it now you're realizing and...
I knew then. I did know for sure. I definitely knew, but it's still different after the fact, no matter what. So it's almost like, with the family or, with kids and whatnot, like, how special the time is. And, everybody tells you the time flies and it's flying. But still, once it's passed, you still look back and go, man, that went fast. So I knew what was happening and I realized it, but I still have an even greater appreciation looking back.
Do you see that video differently now versus when you first took it?
I'm just more proud. I guess that's really the impact. I'm proud that I was able to do that. Yeah. So that's the feeling that I get is more just being proud of it. Yeah. Yeah, because it takes a lot.
That you were able to do like all that. What that video signified was like what long day of
the time. So not filming the video, but I'm proud of the fact that I had a routine of several nights a week, getting home no earlier than midnight, and having that day on the weekend when I would go and spend the entire day and just all those things. I'm proud of that, and I'm happy of what that's been able to create.
And then having to wake up the next morning and go into your job,
right?
And and then picking up your son up from school and dropping him off, and then on nights going back to your office and working and like all of those things where you are not just an employee for this company. You are not just the owner of this business. You're also a full-time father. You're also a full-time husband. You're also, and we'll talk a little bit more about that family dynamic and like what it takes, and how a lot of that sometimes it's really what makes all of this possible.
It does.
But why do you think the middle season is where most people give up?
Oh man, because that's the tough part. That's where it gets real. Again, like you said, it's fun. It's fun to create a logo. It's fun to create a name. Tell everybody what you're gonna do and all that. And that's the fun part. But when it's time to really, oh shoot, you know what? I didn't make any money this month, and I've got to still believe and sit here and put the work, and nothing's coming in yet. It's very similar to a diet. Is what I would probably equate it to. It's easy to, or buying a book. It's easy to start. It's easy to go sign up for a weight plan. It's hard to, when you're starving and it's 8 p.m., not to go and eat something. That's the hard part. It's easy to, I have a whole library of books. It's very impressive, right? But how many of them have I read? It's a whole other thing.
We don't talk about that.
Right, we'll leave
that. So I'm gonna be like very honest with everybody, right? Because we meet a couple of times, of course, to discuss these topics. And the very first time that we met to discuss this, I was so ready because initially this episode was going to be titled "The Loneliness of Leadership."
Yes, that's right.
And then when as we kept discussing it, we realized, okay, maybe that's not necessarily the best topic because while we touched on it, we realized what we were talking about more was what it really takes.
Yes.
But I came into that first meeting with you kind of fully prepared for you to complain and for me to be like, yeah, this is so hard. Yeah, like all together, like, yeah, look at me, I'm struggling so much, and man, you know, like have pity on me, or woe is me, or look. But what really shocked me was that I kept asking you questions about, like, you know, kind of along those lines, and you kept giving me answers that I was like, wait, is Derrick like not from this world? Because why are you not complaining about these things? But there was something that you said, like you mentioned, you know, and I said, how did you not lose that momentum? How did you not lose that excitement? How do you? And you're like, well, I made sure to give myself wins. And whether it's a monthly win, a weekly win, that there was always something during the week that like I was looking forward to, or that I knew, or something that I accomplished. So you mentioned that even in that middle season, you found ways to stay motivated by those weekly wins. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, how do you define what a win looked like each week? Or
so there were a couple of things. So I would have my wins or my rewards. So it was two things. One, you have to have goals and things that you're going to accomplish every single week. So it's impossible to say, okay, daily, you know, daily wins, because that, you know, if you're juggling multiple things, that can be hard every single day to, you know, do something and feel accomplishment for your venture if you're not in it full time yet, if you're in that transition. But weekly, yes, now you can't let a week go by and you have not accomplished something. And it doesn't have to be huge, but if you accomplish 52 small things in a year, that equals up, you know, to be pretty large. So could be, you know, sometimes it would be just creating a detailed plan on how we were going to, you know, move into a new segment. You know, how are we going to go into the education you know, industry? How are we going to break through that? I would create a plan for that. That may be, you know, a detailed process. This is before ChatGPT days, so I could have fast tracked some of that stuff, right? But you know, things like that, and then the rewards of, okay, kind of similar again to a diet, to where, you know, a lot of successful diets have built-in cheat meals, built-in cheat days. And on those last few days, you're really looking forward to, oh my gosh, okay, if I can just get to Sunday, oh man, have that meal, you know, I'm really enjoy it, and I can get right back to it. This is kind of a similar type of a journey where, you know, if I'm able to, you know, accomplish everything that I wanted to that week, then we may, you know, go out to, you know, a fun celebration dinner. You know, you don't have to wait a year to accomplish all these things to celebrate. Celebrate weekly. Have some fun. It may be just going and buying an ice cream or something like that, but just being aware of enough, being in the moment to realize that you're doing this. You're doing it. And reward yourself and acknowledge it. That's one of the keys.
And I remember like speaking about that, where a lot of times we think so far off into the distance, or just big picture. And we kind of gotta like minimize it sometimes and break it down, because if all you're looking for is to like that one day where you can say, you know, like I made it because of whatever it is that I'm measuring success by, and that's gonna take you a long time to get there, or maybe not. Everybody has a different journey, but what's gonna keep you motivated now in the moment? You know, sometimes that far away image isn't enough, because you're not giving yourself things to be proud of in the moment, to be proud of now, things that you accomplished, even if they're not, like you said, giant things, especially when you're starting out. But you can be proud of yourself for the small things that you accomplish. Yeah,
exactly. I would even go, if I could, I would try to golf on like Sunday. And that would be like a good outing, kind of get me away from it and be a celebration and kind of mark that week and mark of, okay, you did it. You know, you stacked another successful week together.
Why do you think it's so important for leaders to see progress, even in those small doses?
Man, you have to, because it's easy to get discouraged. You will think about quitting. You will think, you know, you'll see your friends that have 9 to 5 and driving a nice ride and everything. And everybody tends to make things look great. Right? So you see people that aren't, you know, staying up late, crazy nights and doing all the things you're doing. And it looks like they have more than you. And you're like, okay, what am I doing wrong? So, you know, it's easy to question yourself, have imposter syndrome and all those types of things. So it's very important to do that.
Yeah. But, you know, with that, and we discussed this a bit too, where it's, you are starting this journey of entrepreneurship. Let's say your goal is to eventually have a team, to have multiple people.
Yeah.
But you cannot lead others until you learn how to lead yourself.
Yes.
And so that element of discipline, and that's the discipline that keeps you looking for weekly wins,
Right.
that keeps you on that schedule, that keeps you, what did it look like for you practically to lead yourself during that time before, you know, even before a team, before even you had any employees?
Yeah. Yeah. Difficult for sure. But, you know, I knew where I wanted to go. I knew I needed a team to get to where I wanted the business to be. And so I focused on really, there's a lot of discipline, but I focused on that first position. You know, that first hire. I remember, it's so funny now as it feels so long ago. I was like, if I can just get a graphic designer, oh my goodness. Because I was doing everything. I was building sites. I was doing graphics. I, you know, was coding. I was doing all these things, which a lot I don't do really any of that anymore. But I remember, I was like, man, if I could just get a graphic designer, oh my gosh, everything would be amazing. And I remember getting that and going, oh man, wow, it's great. And then it shifted. Man, if I can just get a web developer. Oh man, okay, I got the graphics done. If I can just get a web developer. Man, okay, got that.
Yeah.
Oh, if I can get a back-end developer. And then it just, you know, snowballed into, again, having those wins and, you know, having that. But the discipline, I think a lot of it came from, as far as if I were to take you into my mindset, it was the alternative is what ultimately drove me. The mindset of, and the alternative of, I do not want to ultimately, for me personally, there's nothing wrong with it. But for me personally, I did not want to work a 9 to 5, and then I would want to work for anybody. And so that's what drove me. And the alternative was, so, okay, this may be hard right now, this staying up till 1 a.m, but I'd rather stay up till 1 a.m. and get this done than have to, for the rest of my life, work for somebody. So that's what got me through ultimately, if I were to sum it up at the highest level.
Yeah, because I remember us discussing this and you mentioning it, which was the part that I was like, wow, you're built differently, you know, like, and sometimes there's that element of like some people, everybody's different.
Yes.
And there are some things that either you have it or you don't.
Yes.
And there are things you can learn, you know, but where, you know, when I was asking about this, where you're again working, we can say 2 full-time jobs,
Yeah,
and on top of everything else that we've already mentioned.
I carried 2 laptops all the time.
Yeah. and I asked you, like, how hard was that? How exhausted were you? And I remember you saying, like, you know, I didn't really feel like, sometimes I would be physically tired, but I never felt like, oh, this is such a burden.
No, it was more excitement of, man, it was more of the thirst of wanting to get to that point, to get to 1 laptop. That was a big thing. Like, man, I wanted to go on a trip or be able to go somewhere and travel. Because I've had this huge bag. My bag was so big. My wife would always complain about it. Like, good gracious, why is that bag so big? Why is it so huge? I was like, I need all this. You know, something happens, and sometimes I might get a call and there'd be a fire at work, and I'd have to literally pull over to the side of the road, turn my hotspot on, turn something on, do something real quick. Like, I remember all those things.
Yeah.
And so I remember being like, man, when I can get to just one, get a light bag, and just kind of calmly, you know, just kind of, you know, stroll in, I'll be doing something. But yeah, just having those different goals and mindsets, never looked at it as a burden. It was just more excitement of, man, just knowing how great things would be for me personally, the way I'm built, the type of lifestyle that I want to have. I was driven by what was to come, and I was willing to do anything to get it.
It's like your motivation. You were your own hype man, you know.
Yes.
During that time, like, of course, and your wife and your son, and but as far as like overall, again, in those areas, nobody was seeing, like, your clients did not see. If anything, it was like they cannot see this part, right?
Nah, they didn't even know I had a job.
Yeah, they didn't know you had a job, and that's like, but they didn't see. People aren't seeing, again, your employees. To know that, like, you went back to corporate America to keep them on. And it's like things like that I'm sure that they were very grateful for, but things that at the end of the day landed on your shoulders, your responsibility, your burden to carry, and not theirs, doing this for them.
Right, that's right.
And it's so many times in this, journey as entrepreneurs, and especially as you start scaling into a team, and like those things that a lot of times you're going to have to do for your employees behind the scenes that they don't even know about.
Yes.
But it's to keep them on to do this, and they sometimes they don't know about it.
No.
So you in your mind, like, I just did this thing for all of you,
Right?
And I'm not going to receive probably one thank you, because I don't want you to know.
Right. That's
I
true.
just want to keep that.
And that's why it's so funny, because you're making me think and doing such a great job of co-hosting this. I look back and I cringe and I'm embarrassed on the things that I used to complain about when I worked at a company. You know what I mean? Like in this day, like now being the owner and entrepreneur and whatnot, and I think of like all the responsibility and the sacrifices that I make for things, and then I'm embarrassed by the stuff that I would complain about being on the other side of like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? So it's funny to me now.
Yeah, to be able to see that and not be on the end and you're like, people keep complaining. No, I'm just kidding. You have great employees.
We ran out of creamer in the break room. What type of company is this? Oh my God.
But and those things are like, again, you're leaving out 1 a.m. And that's also time where you knew why you were doing it, right?
Right.
And I know that he is so, like, I mean, we were discussing before today, like when was it? A couple of days ago, you took your son to a concert and he had the best time ever. We were watching the clips of them just
Playboy Cardi.
Yeah, Playboy Cardi. I didn't want to mess up the name again.
That's right.
Called him Cowboy Cardi earlier today. My bad. My bad. And I'm sure you're like watching that. You showed us a video of him jumping up and down and having the best time ever. And being able to do that for him now meant some nights where you weren't coming home.
Right. Exactly.
And some sacrifices that had to be made, but now you're like showing us videos of look at him and his friends enjoying this concert. Great seats, having the time of his life.
He lives a great life.
But in those moments, but that's why you did it.
For sure.
That's why those nights were worth it. Those sacrifices, those nights where you probably weren't coming home for dinner that day, and even though that's an agreement between you and your wife, sometimes as parents, like, how do you explain that to your child? But now I'm sure he's like not mad at it.
Not mad at it at all. And the thing is, they never felt it was cool because again, we had a system. They never felt neglected. Like we would have a weekend time. We would always go shoot ball at the park. I took them to school every day, picked them up still 3 days a week. So we had that time. My wife, she didn't feel neglected. I had my scheduled days where I'd come home, have dinner, go out to eat on the weekends, do our thing, take our trips. So I've had a miraculously, even though I was doing a lot, it's like every single minute was utilized for something and whatnot. So it was able to not have anybody, make sure everybody got what they needed.
But that's why, again, it's so important to learn how to really lead yourself and that discipline. I feel like in my life, that's an area that I can improve so much on. Like making sure every second is, every minute has a purpose. And so I look at you and I admire that so much. In my mind, I go, how did he do it? And then when you were telling me, there was such a schedule put in place and you made sure that every minute was you guys, but learning to, because if you don't, there was something you said to me one day and you were like, when you have nothing going on, you can be as disorganized as you want to be.
Oh, yeah.
But when you have all of these things, you can't afford to be disorganized because how would have it worked with all of those elements, going into play if you hadn't had that structure and that discipline to discipline yourself to make sure, like, even if you're tired, I'm getting up and I'm doing this and I'm showing up for the people that I still want to show up for.
Absolutely.
So I admire that so much. That area where, again, nobody's clapping for you.
No. Do not know. It's just you doing what needs to be done, and what the end goal is, and it's going to be worth it, and that's gotta be enough.
And that's why you really have to be so sure of like what your goals are.
Yes.
And not just your goal, but what motivates you. I want to ask you, what's the difference between leading for applause and leading from conviction?
Man, so you definitely have to lead from conviction, because applause comes and goes. That comes and goes. Again, it feels great when you get it.
Yeah.
Oh man, it feels great. It won't lie, but that's temporary. You'll constantly be. I think from applause, that's probably this might not be the best. Let me. I'll just say addiction.
Okay.
All right. So if there's an addiction, that first taste of whatever it is, because there's many things you can be addicted to. It's like, it's so amazing. Then you're chasing that, and it's never like that first, right? And so that's kind of similar probably for applause, to where, that applause is like, oh man, and you're just chasing it, and you're never going to be able to ultimately, have that. And so you've got to go from conviction. You have to feel the strongest about what you're doing, because you're going to have naysayers. People are going to question, especially after it's been a year or two. You haven't been where maybe you said you'd be, or other people think you should be. Can you still, stay with it?
Yeah.
That's what determines if you're going to get there or not. And your conviction is what's going to get you through. You've got to, believe it. And again, there's that breakthrough. Once you have that breakthrough, you're good to a degree, but you've got to push until you get to that. And sometimes we don't know if we're having a breakdown or a breakthrough, and they can feel the same.
It's like, preacher.
Yes, yeah. Now I got to give. Now that's from Tim Ferriss.
Okay.
The 4 Hour Work Weeks. I got to give him props for that. I got that from his book. But that was one of the best things I've ever read.
Yeah.
Was, are you having a breakdown or a breakthrough? And they can feel the same.
Yeah.
And you got to determine which is which.
Ooh,
and a lot of
so
times,
good.
because when you're about to break through, you're like on the verge. It feels like a breakdown, and that's when a lot of people quit. Yeah, and a lot of times you quit right before you're about. And you
never know what's around the bend. Like you never know that you almost made it, but you missed it. And that's why with like entrepreneurship and wanting to be a CEO and wanting to have a team, you really have to figure out like what is leading you. Yes, right. Like, is it because you're really passionate about this thing? You want to build something that matters. You want to build something that is going to give you financial freedom, that it's going to help your family, that's going to help other people? Or are you like, well, I want people to look at me. I want to be seen. I want to hear the applause. I want to get the recognition. Because, and if that is what you're after, then that's not going to sustain you. If that's what you're after, it will not sustain you, because for most people, unless you are, again, one of those overnight successes, that is not the story for the majority. There are going to be moments where you feel like you're in a desert, where you're not seeing results, or where you're not seeing the result. Or let's say you saw results and you were so excited, but then you stayed at that, you're staying at that same level, and you're like, I can't figure out how to scale. I'm not in a bad place. I'm somewhat of a comfortable spot, but I can't seem to scale it. And that's a completely different episode too, the scaling,
we'll have more on that.
Yeah.
With documentation.
Yes, that will be more a blueprint series. But being able to stick through it, I remember I was telling you the story, and even though it doesn't have to do with entrepreneurship, but yes, with leadership. For 7 years, six and a half years, I was the president of a nonprofit organization. And that story is a very long story short, right? I was elected for 7, and every 2 years you go up for election. At the end, I decided not to run again. It was time for me to move on to other things. But it was a religious organization, and we have 2 major events every year. One in November, one in July. Thousands of people come. I'm in charge with my team, right? We had a regional team. The regional team broke down into district teams, 5 different districts. So overall, it was a very large number of people leading. But at this July event, it's our convention. And on the 3rd night, the closing night, it's where they call one by one the leaders, and people clap for you, right? And at the very end, they call every district, and like the VP of Virginia, the VP of Columbia, the VP of the districts, and then they'll go, everybody stand up for the regional team. and they'll call the names. And then at the very end, it would be the president, be like, and your regional president, and they'd say your name. And I would walk in, and I always felt I've just never been good at that stuff. But I remember, I was telling you, every December would be our meeting with all of the teams and our regional board, like the only people above me, and that was our regional board. And like my very first year I was in there, I was like 21 at the time. Again, this is a religious organization, so I'm also working with a lot older men, a bunch of pastors and all this stuff. And I came in there like ready to be like, no, you're gonna take me seriously. But point is, long story short, at the very end, my bishop came up to me and he said to me, this is where leaders are made. He was like, not on those stages where everybody's clapping at you.
That's right.
Not on those stages where all the attention and these large events, but in these meetings where where nobody sees the work that gets done. This is where the whole year gets planned. This is where you fight for your dates, for your funding, for your this, for all that stuff. That always stuck with me.
Right.
Because so many people, so many people crave that attention and they crave that. But all of that is beautiful, but those moments are fleeting.
Yeah.
It's those behind the scene moments that make that happen. So like if all you want is that applause, that's not gonna sustain you. Because a lot of times you're not gonna get. A lot of times you're gonna get people angry at you, people complaining, or you're not booking as much as you would want. I would ask yourself like, what is keeping me motivated? A conviction to this,
absolutely,
or the applause.
Yeah.
We also spoke about, even though we're talking about this middle season, somebody is always watching.
Always.
Even in the unseen season, somebody is always watching.
Yes, they are.
Whether it be your family, whether it be your coworkers, whether it be,
especially.
Especially, right? So in the middle season, there's no spotlight, no applause, but somebody's still watching. It could be your kids, your team, your clients. What do you think, who do you think was watching you during that time? Maybe even quietly, and maybe they were even shaped by watching you. Yeah,
tons of people. So, especially early on, there were a lot of people that knew me that then started businesses and started very similar businesses. So that showed that, I don't think any of those are still going now, but not a shot. But that's definitely, ripple effect and people that were watching. Family for sure. I think my son is definitely molded by a lot of what he's seen. I'm seeing a lot of things that he's doing that shows that he's been paying attention and what he's seen. My wife certainly is paying attention also from a trust factor, because there's a lot she trusts me explicitly with so many different things, from a financial standpoint, from a time standpoint, to who I'm around standpoint, so many different things, and so, but definitely watching to just see how things are continuing to progress. She sees all the work behind the scenes. She sees that. So I know she's been watching and very proud. Family, but then, coworkers. A lot of my biggest referrals have been from people that I've worked with in the past. And so that just shows, again, somebody's always watching. Clients. Our clients are always watching. They're always evaluating. You're as good as your latest piece of work. And so you can be doing great for a client for years, but you start slipping, they notice that. They're watching. But and even here in the room, there's many, many people here that I know, watching. Robert, I met Robert here at a dinner, event. And that was a quick engagement. But again, there was something about that interaction that stuck for both of us to bring us to where we are now. Cole, I was just telling him, filming here today. So it's on the flipped to where I'm always watching. Most of the people that work with TNT are people that I've had interaction with before. And I was watching. And I noticed certain things that they did when they didn't know I was watching. And that's what impressed me. And that can go both ways. That can go on the good side, and that can also go on the bad side when you don't think I'm watching, and I notice something and it's like, oh, okay. Make another. So that it goes.
But that's so important to know, because you think nobody's clapping for me. I'm not getting the attention I want right now, or the one that pleasing. We got to be honest with ourselves. It always feels good to be noticed. It always feels
absolutely.
good, but somebody is always watching.
Yes.
And so maybe that determination to not quit, even though things aren't going the way you want them to, is the motivation somebody else needed to not quit.
That's right.
Or maybe that drive, that discipline is what somebody else needed. And those small things that you may think, oh, but I don't have the tens of thousands that I want right now, or all those clients. But your discipline could be motivating somebody else.
Yeah.
Your determination could be
Yes.
motivating somebody else. You never know who's watching. And the reality is that there's always at least one person. And there's somebody who's either watching you for motivation or watching you because they're going, oh, I know that they're not going to make it. I know that they're...
Sure.
Somebody's either watching you because they believe in you, or they're watching you because... And you want to prove this one right and this one wrong. You know, sometimes it's okay with wanting to prove people wrong.
For sure.
I mean,
I love that's a great, I fully endorse that source of
Proving
motivation.
people wrong.
I fully endorse that source of motivation. John Sternstein from Stern Security. He's a good friend of mine, has a very successful cybersecurity business. Part of his motivation was when he started, there was someone that he said, well, this won't last more than, I forget what it was, a couple years and whatnot. And he just had a huge 10-year celebration. And he still, to this day, whenever he has a milestone or a celebration, he acknowledges that person that doubted him.
Love it.
So I love it.
Love it.
I fully endorse that for sure.
How do you think being a dad influenced the way you showed up as a leader?
It just added responsibility and, gave me another factor of there's no turning back. Yeah. There's no turning back. It's similar to when I moved out of the house and my dad took my keys and it was like, dang, okay, this just became real. Like I can't go back now. Right. Yeah. I was like, I can't go back now. Yeah. But that was the best thing he could have done because it really made it real. It was like, okay, there's one thing. When you have a safety net, when you have a security blanket, it's easy to fall back. When you have money in savings and you're fine with just dipping into it, you will. But if you clearly in your mind say, okay, no, there's no way, like this has to work. I have to do this. I can't go back. I can't go there. That's another gear and mindset that will always get you where you need to go.
Yeah. How would you define success now? Do you think it's you see it differently?
It's different. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I definitely see it different. I mean, before, money. And again, money's great, and money then allows you to have these other things that I'm about to say. But the focus for me now, I say success is more your time, what you're able to do with your time. Of course, you have to have money for that. So I fully get that. But those are things that I cherish more. I cherish it more. The time, the freedom of choice, being able to not take certain projects. That is very freeing and very rewarding. Because when you start out, you feel like you've got to take everything. Oh, I got to take it at all costs, that type of thing. Yeah. So those are success. Being able to pick and choose who you surround yourself with. Yeah. I'm very picky, cautious of my inner circle.
As it should be.
You can look in this room and see that. Yeah. So, you have to have a certain spirit about you, a certain way about you, for me to really mess with you. And trust is a very, very big thing for me. So all those are, ways that I kind of measure success. Being able to be around who I want to be around, do business with who I want to do it with, and have the time to do certain things. That's what, success is for me. For those quiet moments, being able to sit in a club chair like that, that's one of my greatest pastimes, honestly. Being able to sit in a club chair and just have that peace, that's success for me right now. Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody who's in their middle right now? I mean, they're putting in the hours, they are putting in the work, they are disciplined, they're they haven't faltered, they're going, but they're not seeing those results, and they're feeling unseen. They're feeling exhausted, even though they're doing all the right things.
Yeah. Well, first of all, kudos to them. Kudos for doing it. I love seeing, hearing, being around people that are on their journey. There's those that are in that middle. You know, sometimes I feel like I have to pull back sometimes because there's so much that I would just want to do for them and, you know what I mean, help us. I love that. But I would encourage them to think about, find that motivation. Think about the alternative. You know, for me, that was my biggest driving force, was the alternative.
Yep.
You know, think about that alternative. Is as low as you may get, as down as you may get, because you will. Think about that alternative. Yeah. And know that you're doing this for a reason. Yeah. And you don't want to look back and go, man, dang, you know, woulda, coulda, shoulda. You know, one of the worst things I feel in life is to have regret of, especially when you really feel like you could have done something. Yeah. And you didn't happen because you didn't stick with it. Yeah. You know, that sucks. So, you know, don't be in that situation. You know, really do everything you can to see it through. Because when you break through, it's absolutely amazing. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. And I love that quote that we said at the beginning, but nobody claps for the nights that you don't quit. And every night that you don't quit, it's a success. It is. And it's a win. That's a win. A huge win. Clap for yourself. Yes. Like, yes, nobody's going to clap for those nights because they don't see those nights. Yes. But one day, you know, you'll see the fruit of that, and so will they. But just know, there is that middle area. Yeah. There is. Everybody's going to go through that middle area. It's every journey includes one. That's right. And the journey of entrepreneurship includes one. And some may last longer for others. Yeah. Some may be shorter, depends on your story. But anybody who's made it went through it. Yes. And they would probably tell you, stick by, because you never know when you're around. You never know when you're going to take that turn and like you go, I'm so happy I didn't give up. Yeah. I'm so glad I kept believing in myself, even if other people didn't believe in me.
Yes. It's a big, just stacking another week of hanging in there is huge. It's similar to golf. You know, Tiger would say his pars were bigger than his birdies. You know, just those long putts where we were able to just stay at the same score and not go down. Like, that was huge, just to keep that momentum, you know. That's a big part of a journey.
There's a person that has constantly been mentioned throughout this entire journey. Well, two people, right? Your son and your wife. Yes. But your wife really, I'm sure, also took a lot of work on her hands too to help you make all of this happen. So I'm sure you want to shout them out, and anybody else, because you also can't do this alone.
Yeah, we definitely cannot do it alone. You know, there's so many people that I have to thank, but definitely my wife has been amazing through this whole journey. Like I said, has trusted me to go the places I've gone, to, you know, spend and invest, you know, ways. Me personally, trusted me to invest money in ways and not invest in other areas. Her investing, all of that. So she's been amazing. My family's been amazing. Son's been amazing. Everybody. But then with this idea, CEO Lounge, it's been an idea that I had for over 20 years. You know, when I first started in business, I wanted to chronicle other businesses because that's what I would watch a lot. Yeah. And so now with the event of podcasts and whatnot, it's different. But this has been just a, you know, great journey. We just started. You know, definitely want to thank you for joining me with this. I want to thank so many people in the audience here. Jalen's been amazing. You know, we've been talking for a couple years about this, about different topics, different ideas. So many people have contributed so much to this. Debbie in the crowd has contributed, has helped film some of our pilot shows. So many people have contributed to make this happen. So definitely want to thank everybody. Yeah.
And I want to thank you. I think you're such an inspiration. I've been learning so much throughout this whole process. So I'm so excited about other people being able to hear from you and learn from you. And even this, again, these real talks of like what it really takes and learning from your experience and being able to see somebody who I admire, somebody who I would say, you know, I want to be there one day, and being able to hear the stories of how it got you there. I think it's so important for us to hear. So I'm sure everybody else would agree the same. Anybody who listens to this can learn so much from it. So thank you so much for giving us a platform to be able to talk about this.
Yeah, love it.
And yeah, so what would you, last words to anybody, encourage them on this journey?
Just, you know, and I want to take a couple questions here from the audience before we go. But yeah, just stick with it. Stick with it. Surround yourself by the right people. If you have people that are giving you negative energy, try to separate yourself from that. You can do it. Believe in your conviction, and make sure you have those weekly wins. Those weekly wins. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate the milestone. And hit us up, message us. In the comments, you'll see all of our resources as well as how to get in contact with us. But reach out. If you're dealing with anything, if you have any questions specifically, send them to us and we will answer them. So that would be the advice I would give you. You got this. You got it. All right. Well, do we have any questions from the audience?
Whenever you're building something, you notice as more you learn, there's so many different skill sets that you need to acquire. And, when it comes to running a business, there's leadership, there's finances, there's sales, there's marketing, there's all these different facets that you have to focus on. How do you know what to focus on and when?
Yeah, what and when. Wow. No, that's a great one, man. There is a lot. And if it's just you, and you want to be careful on, there's a line between when you need to bring people in. And so you don't want to bring people in too late, but you also don't want to bring people in too early. So there is a line for that. What I would say is it all comes down to planning ultimately is what it all comes down to. So, and there's tons of resources now, much more now than there's ever been. So there's a lot of resources to help you with all of those other pieces of the business that you need. I would say the part that you definitely don't want to skimp on and don't want to try to do yourself unless you have a really strong history with this would be the finance side, the accounting. So I would say definitely get a good accountant, to help you with that from the financial side, the book side. Make sure that's straight. As long as that's good, you can work through everything else. So I would say, as you're planning your resources, as you're stacking your money to break free, start your business, make sure you have someone that can help you from the financial side. And then from there, make a plan. Make a plan of all the areas that you are responsible for, and see how you can have that outline to outsource what and when. So start trying to do, as much as you can yourself, and then break off one by one, break off each piece one by one, and just take it in steps like everything. Because otherwise, like all that we talked about, it can become overwhelming. Yeah. So that's the best way is once you visually see it, then it's not as daunting once it's down on paper. So yeah, that'd be my advice.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We've got another question, Robert, from the audience.
Yes, Derrick. Can you talk a little bit about mindset? So how can an entrepreneur that's in the middle protect their mindset so that they can make it through to the reward?
Yeah, man, your mindset is all that you have. So, kind of going to what we said before, I would, you have to believe in yourself. You have to, you may have a support system that believes in you and all that's great. Okay. But you ultimately, you've got to be the biggest supporter and the biggest believer in what you're doing, because you can get into your own head and that can really mess you up. So you've got to believe in it and be strong in that. Have those weekly goals, have those weekly wins. So you can see that success week in and week out. But make sure that you have weekly goals, that you're accomplishing those goals, that you are celebrating those wins in even the smallest way. And that can help just get your mindset happy about what you're accomplishing. Because it is a mind game. It's very, very, very mental. And you'll have a lot of forces, internal and external, that will try to pull you away from it. But those are the biggest pieces of advice that I would advise you on, is that. And the other thing that I would say is consciously be grateful and thankful for where you are. That's a lot of times we focus so much on where we're trying to go, and we get caught up on, man, I'm not there yet, and really wanting to be there and what it's going to be like, that we don't appreciate where we are. And that can really get you there. So, it could be and being appreciative of the small things. You get a contract that's a building block, be thankful as I don't know what for that. And the more you're thankful for what you have, just the happier you are and the more drive you have to continue. And that's something that I have a gratitude book now, the journal, where I'm noting like what I'm thankful for, because that's a great way to then keep yourself motivated.
Can I add something real quick, and I'll be fast about it.
Please.
And for me, like I'm led a lot by my faith, right? So I'm not going to enter into that too much, but this week at church, somebody was telling their story, and it impacted me greatly. And she was saying how a lot of things, and I'm not going to go too much into it because there were so many lessons from her message, but one of them was she currently lives in an apartment that's like not very nice. It's not in a great area, with her and her husband. And she said, but she decorates it so beautifully. And somebody came and visited her at her apartment and was like, your home is decorated so beautifully. And they told her, I live in an apartment right now, but I don't want to decorate it because if I decorate it, I'm going to get complacent. And I know that what God has for me is something greater. He has a home for me. And she said, that's beautiful. I believe that I'm going to have my home too. But right now, this is what I have. And I'm going to honor what I have right now. I'm going to honor it so well that I'm going to decorate it beautifully. I'm going to make it as cozy as I want it to be. But it's that also honoring what we have right now. Sometimes we want so much more that we don't honor what's already been given to us. And when we really look, so much has already been given to us. And it's that element of gratitude. So I just wanted to add that because I know it's a lot easier said than done. But when you look around and you go, well, let me honor this now. If I honor this well, I will 100% be given more. I honor this well.
That is so true. Yeah, and that's a great example. That's a great story. Yeah, and I agree with that. And I honestly, to my core, I believe that at times that's why I was not granted certain things, because I wasn't ready for it, because I wasn't honoring where I was. So that's a great lesson. Great questions. Great questions.
I would like to add to what was just being said, but I also have a question.
Okay.
So I had mentioned this before on the podcast, but it's a quote from the book The Alchemist. I know everybody knows about it. But one of the quotes, it's something along the lines of, like, you can't chase gold if you don't know what it takes to get to like silver or lead or something like that, where it's a journey. You're not going to know what it takes to get to certain areas or to get to that apartment or that dream house you want and truly know how to appreciate that if you didn't know what it took to get to some of those like smaller steps.
That's it.
So kind of appreciating that journey and how the journey is those character building moments. And so every step of your journey really does serve a purpose, and to honor that instead of focusing so much on like the end goal. But my question was, how do you navigate kind of undershooting what it will take to get somewhere? So oftentimes, like for me, like starting my journey with cybersecurity, I had these goals of like, by this time I'm going to have this, by this time I'm going to be here, and it's all going to work out. But it was one of those things, like the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't really know much, and that could be a little bit discouraging. So it's like, how do you navigate kind of coming to that realization that, okay, this is going to take a little bit longer, and that you don't know as much as you think you do?
Oh, yeah. Another fantastic question. And I face that. Just because you create a plan and document it and have milestones and whatnot does not mean that it's going to go that way. And so, and when I say, celebrate, have, weekly goals and whatnot, you're not going to hit, your goals every single week. So let me be clear about that. But the point is to have them and to work and to accomplish, work towards those. So, and as long as you're doing that and moving forward, you're moving in the right direction. We just don't want to go backwards. So if it's going to take a little longer, that's okay. It's just a matter of resetting. It's like me. I thought when I left corporate America the first time I was gone, right? Had a big old party, had a cake, had people came and everything, you know what I mean? And then, I don't know, 6 months later, I was back in the job, So that that would have stopped most people, right? You know, and said, okay,
Yeah.
man, this isn't for me. And then the embarrassment, friends knowing, and dang, see, you know, no, but you know, I knew, okay, this was just somewhat of a setback. If I just need more runway, I need to go back. I need to stack some more money, and so I can just have a little more, you know, longer, and I'll get there. So it's just about resetting. So when you get into the trenches, and then you really find out something takes a little longer, that's all it is. It just takes a little longer, and you got it. So yeah. Thank you.
So
Thank
good.
you. Great questions. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning into this latest episode. Thank you, Joselyn.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and get on out on that note. No better way
Beautiful.
to end. All right. Thank you. CEO Lounge. See you next time. Like and subscribe. So you want to have your own business. I hear a lot of people step to me all the time saying they want to have their own business. Oh, I want to have fundraisers. I want to do all the things you do. Well, it's a lot that goes into that. So it is, what time is it? 12:20 a.m. Friday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning. Finishing up the day, about to go home. Text my wife, told her I'd be home at 11:30. It's an hour after that, still grinding. All you that say, I want to have my own business. I want to, you know, work my own hours. I want to call my own shots. Well, there's a lot that comes with that. Is it worth it? Yeah. A lot of great perks that come with it. But again, it takes years in the making, a lot of hard work, and you don't just come up with an idea and all of a sudden make millions of dollars or become a philanthropist. There's a lot that comes with it. Keep grinding. Entrepreneur.